Next, we're going to hear from the University of Central Florida, and I've been asked to mention that there is a storm coming through. It's going to get a little nasty outside, and so if you hear winds, thunder, Judy's got it all under control. And our staff is going to keep us updated. And this building is very secure. Right, Judy? Okay. We're safe. Now I know why Chairman Colson ran behind yesterday. We may have a 30-minute lunch.
We were right on it.
Yeah, I heard it was 30 minutes late. I got a report. I had spies here. Yeah, well, I heard there was actually 15 minutes late plus a closing speech, which made it 30 minutes late.
That speech covered 5 presentations, though.
Well, yeah, I was warned.
You want to give him one at a time. Well, he's going to cut it off the other one anyway.
You have been quiet today, Frank.
I'm trying.
Well, welcome. I'll turn it over to you all.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to address you as part of an historic year for our great university. On June 10, UCF celebrated its 50th anniversary. State leaders created a new university for the Central Florida region in 1963, and classes started in 1968. Fast forward, and on May 17, we graduated our charter class from the UCF College of Medicine at Lake Nona. And if you saw NBC Nightly News that night, you were reminded that those graduates made American medical school history by becoming the first entire class ever to receive full 4-year scholarships. So thanks to the remarkable generosity of our Central Florida region, these new physicians graduated debt-free.
Well, maybe that'll work.
We're the sole comprehensive research university in a service area that has some 3.6 million residents, and we have a primary mission, as we see it, to provide access to as many deserving students as we're able to educate well. We know that education transforms lives, and our efforts to provide access to a college education in Central Florida have made UCF the largest university by enrollment in Florida and the second largest in the nation. This past academic year, the University of Central Florida conferred a school record 15,096 degrees. Those efforts complement our second primary objective, which is to advance the economic prosperity of our city-state. And we achieve this end in 2 ways. One, by aligning our teaching, research, and service with the needs of the regional economy, and 2, by being America's leading partnership university. I was told early on in my administrative career that in a situation like this, whoever's speaking has 2 primary tasks. One is to point with pride, and the second is to view with alarm. I'll do a little more of the former than the latter, but I do want to share some points of pride with you. And I also have some comments that I'll make about some things that I think do and ought to concern us. The first slide I'll show you is just to sum up what we've accomplished in only 50 years. As I mentioned, we're now the largest university by enrollment in Florida and the second largest in the nation. We're first we found first in institutional wide online learning excellence by the Sloan Consortium in 2012, and you can move down the list. 5th among the up-and-coming national universities in U.S. News and World Report. We're very proud of that 20th international ranking for strength of patents by EEE, and the fact that our incubator network was judged best in the country for 2013 by the National Business Incubator Association. If you look at quality of students as judged by others, well, we're 12th in freshman national merit scholars among public universities in the nation, and yes, we're second in the state to the University of Florida. Kiplinger's and Princeton Review have viewed us as a good buy. best value, and our overall ranking in U.S. News among the best colleges was 98. We have had a strong and abiding commitment to access, and if you look at the graph on the left side, you will see that our enrollment growth has been sustained as some others have not. We have believed that we could optimize use of resources and continue to provide access to a high quality, affordable education, and we're approaching 60,000 students. The stacked bar graphs on the right side of the figure show a pattern that I think ought to be of some concern to us. In 1995-96, we gave 11% of the total baccalaureate degrees that were given in the state. In 2011-12, that had moved up to 13%. The concerning part is that in 95-96, the rest of the state universities, the state university system institutions, conferred 59% of the baccalaureates given in the state, but by 11-12, that had dropped to 51%, or a loss of market share, if you will, of 8 or 9%, 8%. I think that ought to be of some concern to us. If you look at where the real growth has taken place, it's mostly among for-profits in Florida. And I think as a body that has statewide responsibility, this is something that I would urge the Board of Governors to take a careful look at. How do we manage to provide the access we do? Well, one thing we've done is diversify our methods of delivery, course delivery. And if you look at that graph on the left side, you can see that there's been a remarkable growth in online or web-based courses and blended, where web-based instruction is paired with face-to-face instruction. Video, I think our business college folks mainly have taken a look at what our friends up in Gainesville at the University of Florida have done and have tended to copy that. Actual face-to-face instruction is actually declined a little bit, but that decline has been more than made up by web-based courses, and in fact we couldn't have met the demand that we have had for instruction without the web-based courses. We now have 38 fully online degree programs, 14 at the undergraduate level, and 24 at the graduate level. Another way that we've supported access is by trying to make very efficient use of our resources. We're proud of the fact that we are 39%, I believe it is, less expensive on administrative cost than the system median. And as you can see, that's a substantial amount of money. We also are, we operate at 25% less than the system median on instruction at both the lower and upper division. We've also tried to be good stewards of the resources we got in energy use. Back in 2009 or thereabouts, we put up $1 million to fund projects that we thought had a pretty immediate rate of return. And I'm happy to say that as of this year, we had cumulative savings of more than $9 million on that $1 million investment. That's just one example of the kind of efforts that we put forth in energy efficiency. We've got three primary initiatives in our work plan. One is key initiatives. One is faculty hiring. We want to move to increasing preeminence by enhancing the quality of degree programs and the impact of UCF research. We want to reduce our student to faculty ratios and decrease the average undergraduate class size. And we believe it's important that we make strategic hires in focused areas of graduate education and research. We've seen a growth as we have continued to provide access in Central Florida. We've seen our student-to-faculty ratio grow from 28 to 1 to 31.5 to 1. That's about as high as anybody. If you compare it to the overall state university system, that's, I believe, at 22 to 1. If you compare it to the other 107 very high research universities that Carnegie has designated, it compares to 18 to 1. So we are pretty much at our upper limit of growth at this point. We really need more faculty resources, and we're stymied on the any further attempts to make major adjustments in enrollment, on the upside at least, until we can get some more faculty resources. We want to enhance the program breadth, interdisciplinarity, and quality of our graduate programs. We're very proud of the fact that we've got 4 programs that are in among the top 25 as ranked by U.S. News graduate program issue. We had 4 that are among the top 25 in their field. Plus engineering, we had 17 others that were in the top 100, including 8 STEM programs. And our engineering college ranked 72nd in U.S. News and World Report's Best Graduate Schools of 2014. We're very pleased that our interactive entertainment program ranked 5th in North America, was ranked 5th by Princeton Review, and our DeVos Sport Management program got top 5 rankings by the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and ESPN, the magazine. We've gotten some good program rankings. We want more, obviously. If you look at the research impact and economic development that we have been able to build in Central Florida, we're very pleased that over the last 10 years, give or take, we've had about $1.3 billion in contract and research grant activity. Very pleased that recently NASA funded a grant. It's the largest we've ever received as an institution at $55 million, and I believe it sets us apart as the only Florida university to lead a NASA mission. We're very pleased, very proud of the fact that our faculty have obtained 241 patents over the last 3 years, and you can see on the right side of this figure the economic impact of various activities we have. We've got a 9-site business incubator program that's had about a $500 million impact, and it is interesting and unusual in that each of the incubators in the 9-member system is paid for by local jurisdictions, a county or a city, and they do that because they've discovered that almost immediately the businesses that are spun off from the incubator generate more tax income to the municipality than they are investing to have the incubator. So it turns out to be a good business venture for them, and it of course gives the university a chance to work with entrepreneurs at an early stage and help them be successful in bringing their business plans to fruition. If you look down at the lower right, we're very pleased with the fact that we've provided statewide leadership to Grow FL. It's had about a $500 million impact, and when last I looked, they had the lowest cost per job generated of any incubation or development program in the state. If you look at our Central Florida Research Park, you will see that it is the international epicenter for work on military simulation and training. You've got the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard all over there in the park working with our Institute for Simulation and Training and in space that we have been able to provide in what are termed partnership buildings 1, 2, and 3, where Department of Defense personnel work side by side with UCF faculty members and students to generate simulation and training programs that benefit our military. That's been a program that has an enormous impact, and if you just think about the $4.8 billion that flows through those military establishments there in a joint command, that has an enormous impact on Central Florida's economy. We estimate that there are a good 16,000 jobs that depend on that. We're very pleased that we're able to help keep those commands there in the park and thus in Central Florida, and continue to have the great impact that they do on our local economy. I'm sure I don't have to repeat all of the information we've had on Medical City. You probably heard about all you care to for a while on Medical City, but let me just remind you that the projection, I think we're probably on track, is that by 2017 it will generate tens of thousands of jobs and have a $7.6 billion annual economic impact. That's after we get the VA hospital online, and the Moores Children's Hospital is already online. Sanford Burnham is there. Our friends at the University of Florida have built an outstanding facility there that's a research and teaching operation. And we're really reaching critical mass out there with our medical college and our biomedical sciences research facility. I think we're going to see that really take off and fulfill its promise. Now let me turn to our Initiative 3, which is focus on retention and graduation rates. If you look at that left side with FDIC retention rates, we're very proud that we've had, in that 5-year period for the dotted line, I think you see about a 5% increase in retention. Slow but steady is the way it's gone. We think we can do much better, by the way. We think we can get into the 90s on freshman to sophomore retention rate. That's our goal. We're close now. We think we can definitely get in there. The FDIC 6-year graduation rate is now at 68%. After some comments that were made yesterday, I asked to see how many of our students in that group would go on to graduate from another SUS campus. And the estimate at least is 5%. So 65 plus 5 would put us at 70. And then there's another group who are still with us, I think we're up in toward what, 77%? 77% if you look at those who have graduated from UCF, graduated from another SUS institution, or who are still enrolled at UCF. So we take an optimistic view of where we can go with this. I would have said a couple of years ago, if you can get to 70%, it would be close to miraculous. I'm now saying 75 to 80% is attainable for an institution like ours. But we're going to need more faculty members and more advisors, and we're going to have to invest in predictive analytics, that's harnessing big data, to help us assist students in making the right choices so that they do graduate on time and in a discipline that will suit them well. If you look at our enrollment projections, in line with my earlier comments, this is where I'll kind of view with alarm a little bit. I've been pointing with pride up to now in line with that admonition I was given decades ago. We're about grown out. When we talk about 1% growth, some of that's going to be from increased retention. And we've got obligations to our consortium partners through Direct Connect, UCF, our state college, community college partners. We're going to have to manage carefully to hold growth to about that 1% level. But I don't think we can do otherwise. We simply are out of space in classrooms by and large. We're among the most efficient in the country in use of classroom space. And we just don't have the seats in the classrooms. We don't have the faculty members to teach the sections. So we're pretty much done growing. And I hope somebody else can take up the slack. We're ambitious to achieve preeminence. We admire those who have it. We want it and more of it. And to do that, to achieve it, we're going to have to hire more faculty members in STEM and strategic areas. We certainly want to increase our grant and contract funded research. I think I would even up that at 70% 6-year graduation rate. I think we're on a faster track than we knew when we started this process even. And we're going to be pushing some projects that will boost that rate significantly. And part of that is in would be subsumed under that creating the next generation university. We're in a partnership that seems to be emerging right now. The members are Arizona State, University of California, Riverside, and Georgia State. We'll add another 2 to 4 or 5 members, I expect. And we're using predictive analytics, personalized learning systems, very aggressive advising and retention strategies. We think we can boost quality, boost retention rates, and control costs. And we're going to be working in a national partnership to try to do this. So I'm ready to be more ambitious even than I would have been even a month or so ago on some of these goals. And my provost, I'm sure, is saying, what is this guy saying? Yeah. But we believe we can do it. That really concludes my prepared remarks. I would say one other thing that we didn't say under the Achieving Preeminence. We're in the midst of the early stages of a capital campaign. If we're going to be successful, we've got to raise a lot more money.
Thank you, President Hitt. Governor Husseini.
Mr. President, I'm very familiar with UCF. As I have mentioned to you before, my family members have been to UCF. Probably know UCF even before it was named UCF. So I am proud of what you have since with your leadership at UCF. You guys have done just an incredible job, including, you know, when I went to a graduation, that they emptied the pool or the pond to have the graduation there. So you have done unbelievable. The economic development that UCF have brought to the Central Florida has been a tremendous, to us, including myself, benefiting as a developer, building around UCF and the UCF growth. With that said, I have 2 questions for you. Your retention rate is great, lots of other performance great. You have lots of good things are going for you. My first question is that what frustrates me is on a STEM. Mm-hmm. You continuously being at the lower level of 15, 16%, can you give me a sense of what couldn't we get that, higher?
We need more faculty, Maury. We've got in Governor Hosseini, I'm sorry, in our College of Engineering, we've got about as high a student to faculty ratio as would let us sustain ABET accreditation. We just got to we'll redeploy funds as we can without additional funds, but from outside, but especially if we're closed off from getting any additional tuition revenue, nor are we going to really get any reliable stream of appropriations to support us, it's going to be hard to make a big shift there. Let me also point out, if you look at the makeup of our enrollment, we've got, for instance, 3,500 students in hospitality management program, College of Hospitality Management. That, of course, increases the denominator as you look at the percentage who are in STEM areas. Further, if you just take 15 or 16% of a number as large as we've got for our overall enrollment of undergraduates or graduates combined, it's a big number. We'd rank about 3rd in the system on head count of STEM majors right now. Part of the problem we run into as we look at data, comparative data for institutions, is we're just not like a lot of other places. Now, do we want to raise the percentage? Yes. It's a little harder because we take so many transfers, and fewer of them proportionally are going to be successful in STEM disciplines. That's about the only reliable data we have that would show that there's any disadvantage that they have in competing in the 4-year environment. Furthermore, if you look at an FTIC student who comes in thinking that he or she wants to be an engineer, if EE doesn't work out, they find another major. If you take a transfer student who comes in from a state college or community college, they think they want to be an engineer, they try it. If it doesn't work out, they leave the university. So it gives you a little bit steeper hill to climb if you're dealing with large numbers of these students. We're going to have to find a way to combat that, but it's a problem that has vexed us somewhat to now. We accept that we need to do more. We'll certainly work to do it, but it probably will take some additional resources.
Mr. President, we heard from President Barron. You know, I mean, I'm sure he has the same issues, and so has other, or University of Florida. And one thing that came in common, he says, a deliberate decision to improve a STEM. And I think UCF really need to look at a deliberate decision, because what's happening is the number of students you have, and that getting funding from the state, the taxpayers' money, and the taxpayers, you know, is getting a lot of return on their money, you know, but they're not getting the return on the STEM that, you know, is one of the area of emphasized by the Board of Governors. You know, we really like to see you, you know, deliberately, you know, trying to increase that. And just one last question. You know, UCF is the second largest university in the country, and
By enrollment, certainly not by budget or
by enrollment.
Oh,
I know that.
By enrollment, yes.
Yeah. If you had it by budget, you probably would be 25% of STEM. Anyway, now you just mentioned it yourself that you're number 98.
Right.
Right. Does that bother you that the second largest university in the country, but being number 98? Do you have any plan to bring that number down?
Well, we do, and I would say that if you look at what drives that number, a fair amount of it is resources. Some of it is things that some of the factors are things that are influenced by age. You won't find many 50-year-old universities that are above us in those rankings. Things like size of endowment. Up to now, we have, by and large, had to raise money for bricks and mortar and other concerns. We reach the point now where we're going to we know we must bring in more endowment, and we are. We're getting some very nice gifts in the quiet stage of our new capital campaign for endowment. But I think we know what we need to do. It's just a matter of having the time and the resources to work it out. But I take your point. We do need to be deliberate. We need to have overt decisions and make overt plans to get there.
Thank you. Governor Morton.
Thank you. My question concerns the medical school and is more geared to, I think, a problem based on my experience in medicine here in the state of Florida over the past 30, 40 years. We graduate an awful lot of wonderful people from our medical schools, and they go to other states to seek residency. I know that you're going to expand, or your plan is to expand the medical school, so to speak. What plans are you making to work with local hospital systems, medical providers, et cetera, within the state of Florida to enhance residency programs so that the taxpayers of the state of Florida paying for these medical schools that open up with regularity ship out the product to other states, and the taxpayers of other states are the beneficiaries of the taxpayers' support in the state of Florida? We don't get the doctors here because we're not investing in residency programs. So rather than build medical schools, we should be building residency programs. What are we doing to improve that?
Well, I'm happy to tell you that we've already, in partnership with the Florida Hospital in Orlando and Orlando Health, the two largest systems in the area, we've already added more than 100 residencies since the medical school was approved. As soon as the VA comes on stream, there will be another 75 to 100 residencies that will come in. And Moore's is much smaller. It's just a handful of residencies. But we will have added, and we've got a new university consortium that's set up that will have the VA and an HCA hospital down in the Kissimmee area. They will add residencies in internal medicine as well. So we are working to add and have indeed gotten significant new residencies already, something we really want because it's very important to build the quality of medicine in Central Florida. And it would be a shame if we had the medical college and then didn't follow through to expand the number and the quality of residencies and fellowships in the area.
Well, my counsel would be that we should line up those residency programs in concert with any expansion of our medical programs. And absent those residency programs, we should think twice about investing in graduates that are going to have to seek residency out of state, just my own personal philosophy.
Some will always seek residencies out of state because they're going to want to go where the very best training is. And if a young man or woman has a choice of Mayo's or a local hospital, I suspect more times than not they'll go where the very best training is. So we understand that, but we do know, and I certainly agree with you, we need to work with others to bring in more residencies, and we are doing that with some ridiculous success.
At the risk of asking a question of my own president and risking an equivalent of an IRS audit, I do have a couple of them. We heard yesterday that by adding biomedical engineering, the STEM areas went up significantly, and also the partnership with College of Medicine.
Yeah.
Dr. Hitt or Provost Waldrop, what is our goal for that program?
Well, we want to have a large, good, and successful one. Provost Waldrop has already approved some faculty hires in that area. I'll let Tony answer.
Yes, we have already approved 3 hires to get it started. Separate from that, 2 of our colleges, or 3 of our colleges, have already started hiring in that area of their own initiative, so I expect it will build. I also want to point out in terms of STEM degrees that we have a new dean of the College of Engineering, your new dean, and I've committed 10 and potentially 13 lines to help deal with having more students coming in to create more STEM degrees. We also have, our trustees just approved recently, a new undergraduate degree in optical science and photonic engineering, which we think is going to be will bring in a significant number of students, again enhancing the number of students that we will have in STEM areas.
One other question. Our enrollments are actually flattening, I believe. Is that a result of the feeder systems, the partnerships, the transfers, or is it just overall reductions?
It's partly the result of flattening enrollments in the state colleges and community colleges, but it's also a decision on our part to just take fewer students. We're honoring our commitments to our 4 consortium partners, Valencia, Seminole State, Lake Sumter, and still Brevard until July 1. But we're taking fewer from other community colleges around the state.
Thank you.
Governor Tripp.
Thank you, Mr. President. Until today, and in some of the paperwork that came out, there was always a belief that you were going to grow like this. I'm glad to hear that there's some thinking on maybe that's not going to happen. But was there anything in particular that changed this decision?
Well, I think I laid it out fairly well, Governor Tripp. We're out of resources.
Okay.
Well, our goal has never been to grow to a particular size. Our goal has been to meet the need that we sense and the demand we sense in Central Florida for us to offer more opportunity.
So is that need still there?
It is still there.
And so where will it go?
Well, I don't know, but I don't have the capacity to do anything about it right now. I also have to say that it's a little troubling that there seems to be a deep-seated prejudice against size. And if you were to reflect on the deliberations of this board over the last day, really the top programs in the state on many measures you're looking at, Florida, Florida State, South Florida, UCF. throw in New College, gosh, you know, they're a wonderful program, but they're not really a university. You look at the universities that are the most successful on many of the measures that you're talking about, they're all large. And sometimes we hear a dialogue that runs, to my ears at least, a little bit like, well, really big universities are weak. And we know they're weak because they're big. I think we need to get by that. We need to get beyond that.
Okay, I'm going to try to get beyond that. Lake Nona, do we know, going out 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, with what's happening there, which has been fantastic, how that's going to change your university because of what it's going to drive, the needs it's going to drive regarding your students and the kind of programs that you're going to have to support that? Do you have that plan? And you don't have to tell it to me in detail. I know you look at it. Is something there that we're going to see UCF become different because of that program? Then I want to add another one. You have another driver in the area, and it's Disney. Mm-hmm. And so when you talked about your school that supports all of those programs, Darden, all of those, do you have a plan, and do you see how that may change or expand your university to cover those two areas?
Well, in the medical and biomedical area, I think we can see a number of program developments. Part of that depends on the availability of resources. For instance, if we had the money, we would start construction right away on a nursing facility, nursing college facility at Lake Nona. We would immediately want to move nursing, a very large and successful nursing program out there, so they can be close to the VA, close to other opportunities for nursing. I would say the same for our physical therapy program and other related programs. We're also at some point set to put some kind of clinical enterprise there, whether it is a partnership hospital, whether it is an outpatient care unit. I don't know what it'll turn out to be, but I think it's foreseeable that we will do something there. We understand that it's not going to be likely in the least that we could get funding from the state to do that. So at least as things would exist today. So don't anticipate that we're going to come back asking this board to help us fund a hospital or something like it. I don't see that in the card. You know, how we develop that biomedical engineering piece, whether we get into partnerships that help us put the development of biomedical devices, whether Big Pharma comes on the scene in Lake Nona, all of those are questions that we can answer, but we wouldn't be shocked if any of those things happen. You know, that's part of the idea of creating that environment in Lake Nona that then Governor Bush and others were willing to support.
Thank you. The final question is from Chair Colson.
He was going to answer my question.
Okay,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
Tony wanted to
A couple
ask.
additional
sorry.
things I would add is that there's no doubt there will be increased collaboration among the colleges. Medicine is going to be sort of a core that brings various units together. The College of Nursing that the President has mentioned, our College of Engineering and Computer Science, our College of Optics and Photonics have all expressed strong interest in collaborating with the College of Medicine. I think that will lead to new programs. A second thing I would add is the College of Medicine is working with the colleges will soon be forming an MD PhD program. From previous experience at other universities, that tends to bring in some of the very best graduate students that will enhance the collaboration among colleges.
Thank you. Chair Colson.
Mr. President, my vice chair talks about STEM, and I tend to then say, but we want you to do humanities as well. And so, as the largest producer of baccalaureate degree holders in the state, you probably have the greatest responsibility in making sure they understand a little bit about American history and civics and economics and things of that nature. Now, have you done any revisit to your Common Core general ed requirements and to make certain, and I know you have a 2+2 issue that you have to deal with, but to make certain that we're meeting that need?
We have a real expert in that area seated just to Tony's right here, and Dr. Diane Chase, who's been working on that very problem for a good while.
I co-chair the statewide General Education Core Revision Committee. Like all the institutions in the state, we are revisioning our general education core because we were required to by the change in the statute, but also because it's a good thing to do every now and then, to revisit, to see what you're teaching your students. We are looking at our own general education core. Ours was a pretty lean core compared to some in the past. It was a very well, I think, defined and formed. It likely will continue to be. But we're looking at ways that we might want to change it, either with common themes or other kinds of courses. But at the same time, one of the things that we do as part of academic program review, because we do have such a large transfer population, is we can't just depend upon the gen ed core to meet our needs to provide a suitable education for our students. So as part of academic program review, we spend a fair amount of time looking at each of the courses or each of the curriculums in our programs, and trying to make sure that our students are learning the things that they need to learn. And we're on a process now of curriculum mapping in most of our programs to make sure that they're learning the kinds of things that we talk about in our academic learning compacts, both the things that are discipline specific, but also the critical thinking and other kinds of skills that we know we want our students to have.
Thank you. Is Pat still on the phone?
Yes, I am. I am on the phone.
Okay, actually, let me, do you want one last question, one quick question? We're about 5 minutes behind. Go ahead.
All right. With your seismic enrollment, what is your, and I neglected to ask FSU this earlier, and forgive me, I should have. What is your ranking in terms of minority bachelor's degrees awarded?
Depending on the area, the diversity issues in higher education puts us 13th nationally. About a third of our students now, am I correct? About a third are members of racial and ethnic minorities. And the big group and the big growing group has been Hispanics. We're 19% Hispanics now.
I just wanted to point out one quick thing, not a question, an observation. When I looked at the graph related to the enrollment at the different universities, I think it's an important distinction that different universities have had different strategies. For instance, you see where UF's enrollment declined and stabilized. That was a conscious decision that UF made at the time based on their seeking national rankings and trying to control class size. And I think each university, UCF had a different issue they were trying to confront, which was the exploding need for access in Central Florida. I'm pleased to hear that you're going to try to start controlling that. Frankly, I think you can get too big to fail, if you will. I mean, I hate to use that.
Well, if it'll guard against failure, I'm not sure.
No, I think I think you've grown so fast, so quickly. I think it's good to refocus and redouble your efforts now on some of those qualitative factors. You've got great quality, but now there's opportunities to take the numbers you have and achieve the next level of success. And I think that's actually not a bad thing. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. That's good. Pat, I was going to ask if you would like to make a motion to approve the 2013-2014 work plan for the University of Central Florida, and I'm going to finish the qualifications, excluding those sections of the work plan that require any additional regulatory or procedural review or approval pursuant to law or board regulations, and that the committee accepts the out-year portions of the work plan. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Chair Colson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We are now going to adjourn for lunch.